Hi, I'm Maria and this is the Agile State of Mind. Welcome to the second episode of the User Story series. In the last episode, I told you a story about user stories. And today, we will put that theory into practice. We'll talk about Ron Jeffries' 3 C's: card, conversation, confirmation, that I mentioned in the previous episode. And then we will go through 6 characteristics of a great user story with an acronym called INVEST. Let's go! Let's focus on the 3 C's: card, conversation, confirmation, to see the process of creating user stories in practice. 1. The card. The idea comes from the library cards that were used in the pre-internet era to look for books. They contain the author, the title, and the short summary of the book. As I explained before, the card is used to trigger conversations. It can contain the template. As a user, I want so that. But it's advisable to also give it a short, self-explaining title, so we avoid having the backlog looking like this, where it's impossible to find what you are looking for. Moreover, has it ever happened to you that somebody was referring to a story by its number, and that when we know that we killed the story? That might be because the title was too long or too confusing. We can solve it easily by adding a short and self-explaining title. Let's find one for our example. As a mobile phone user, I want to check the weather forecast for my location so that I don't have to look it up every time I move to a new place. So for this example, the title could go like current location for weather forecast. Number 2, conversation. The card should be the trigger for the conversation the PO will have with the team, so they have shared understanding about what they want to build. So they meet and tell stories about who will use the product, what do they want, and why. First, focus on what matters most. The implementation details will come later. Why should we build it in the first place? Think about what will have the biggest impact for your business and the best outcome for your users. Why do the users want it, and why we as a business want them to accomplish it? What's in it for us? What's the business value? With that, you build the minimum viable product, the MVP, to check what's minimum and useful in the market. If you have a big idea in mind, you might want to share the grand objective with the team and run a user story mapping workshop together with them. I'll talk about it in another video because it's a big subject and it's a great way to engage the team and collaboratively come up with all the user stories needed for this grand idea. For smaller ideas, after the conversation, we move on to step number 3, confirmation. To record what has been agreed during the conversation and agree on how to verify it works. For this, you can add acceptance criteria. We will talk about them a bit more in a moment. How do we make sure that our story has all it needs to be pulled into the next sprint? I talk more about the refinement in another video, linked below. Now let's see a simple method that will help us make sure our story is ready. It's called INVEST, and it's an acronym of 6 characteristics of a great story. Let's see another example of a user story, and we will check if it meets all of those characteristics. As a lottery participant, I want to enter my lottery number on the website so that I can check if and how much I won. Independent. Is this story independent enough so it doesn't have any blocking dependencies with others and we can start working on it? For example, we don't need to log into the system to verify that our number is a winning number, which means it can work on its own with what we already have in the system. Negotiable and negotiated means that the user story is not written in stone. It's more like a living documentation that can change when something new is discovered. And then the development team We'll negotiate it with the product owner. Valuable means providing value for the customer and, of course, for our business. Hence, as a user, I want so that. To make it valuable, you might want to think about it as a cake. You want to cut the cake so you have a taste of all the layers and not just the whipped cream. The same goes for software development. You want to feed your user with a taste of all the platforms together and not just backend or frontend. We don't show the user a dummy button saying, check if you won, if there's no logic behind it and it doesn't work. Let's ask ourselves, how can we provide value to the customer so they can start using our product directly after our story is done? Let me get back to you on this one in a moment. Next comes estimable, meaning that the story can be estimated. Usually, the smaller and the more testable, the easier to estimate. Why estimate? This is a topic for a whole another video. Let me just say now that if we can estimate a story, it means we know enough about it and it's feasible. We don't estimate what we don't know. If we cannot estimate our story, it definitely needs more discussion, more detail, or more research. And now, small. In Scrum, it means that it fits into one sprint or less. The smaller the story, the easier it is to grasp what it's all about. The small characteristic goes hand in hand with the valuable one. If you want to slice a story into multiple smaller ones, you need to make sure each one of them provides value for the user, like the slices of cake you are serving to your guests at your birthday party. All of them with a taste of all the layers that are all the platforms. Now, imagine our lottery story doesn't fit into one sprint. What do? Maybe we can slice it into 2 smaller ones. What do you think? The first one would be to check if the user won or not, and the second one would be for those who won to check how much money they won. This way, we provide value for the user faster, and we learn faster if somebody wants to use our new functionality. And last but not least, testable. If we know how to test it, we will know when it's done. A common practice is to add acceptance criteria to the story. These are some points, some use cases that determine that the software does what it's meant to be doing. Each story has its own specific acceptance criteria. And then there is the definition of done, which has more generic idea of what needs to be done in every of the stories. For our lottery example, acceptance criteria could be like, if the number user provided is a winning number, the user should see a message like this. If the number is not a winning number, the user should see this message instead. If our lottery page should be mobile friendly and always appears in 3 languages, then those criteria could be added to our definition of done. So we don't have to add them to every story. We add them once for all. And that's all for today. To sum up, user stories are made to encourage conversation between the people that have some ideas about the product and the people that will build the product. Splitting user stories can be complex, but worry not, you will master it with practice. There is a lot of techniques that can help you do this. I recommend you reading COHN'S book, User Stories Applied, and watching his Better User Stories series. I hope that those tips and tricks will help you create better stories. In the next episode, we will talk about user story mapping. So how to identify all the stories for your grand idea. See you then. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.